The James Show Podcast.
Let's start with a big, no duh moment here. Just absolutely no. Remember, we used to say that a lot. What was that in the 90s? No duh. Where you just slap your forehead so hard you leave a handprint. Here's the headline from today. I'm reading this from our news partner, WFAA.com. All Texas truckers must know English. Governor Abbott orders DPS to enforce after a WFAA report. So according to WFAA, and I saw this on Breitbart and a few other places, so this looks legit. Governor Abbott has ordered the Texas DPS to actually enforce the law that's already on the books requiring English proficiency. Now, isn't this just for truckers, commercial drivers? Just slap yourself in the forehead. Duh. We should be enforcing all laws at all times. Period, point blank, end of story. We have a thing called the rule of law, to where if you're not enforcing the laws, that's bad. That's like a violation of the ethical code. If it's so important it needs to be a law, then damn it, enforce it. If it's not so important that it doesn't need to be a law or doesn't need to be enforced, then take it off the books. But, for the people who say, oh, it's a threat to democracy. Well, if the people can go put representatives in positions of power that pass laws, the representatives, the legislative bodies that are the ones tasked with making the rules, actually make the rule and it gets passed and it goes into law. But another arm of the government just says, nah, we're not going to enforce that. Well, no, you don't write the laws. You don't get to choose whether or not it gets enforced. If you don't want that law to be enforced, you need to go back to the legislative part of government and say you need to repeal this law or change the law. But that's not what they do. No concern about the threat to the democracy crowd over lack of enforcement of laws they don't like. Because if you can pick and choose, if men can pick and choose which laws they do and don't enforce, then you don't have the rule of law anymore. You have the rule of man. You have tyranny. But this was something that just came out today. Greg Abbott told the DPS, hey, you know that the Donald Trump executive order requiring the enforcement of the English proficiency rule? Yeah, we're actually going to enforce that. Okay, that's great. But, is that like headline stuff? It is, but it's sad that it is. It's sad that we are in 2025 and we have to celebrate. Oh, good. The government's actually going to enforce the laws that we sent up there and forced our representatives to pass. We shouldn't be applauding them. We should be expecting this. This was the most normal thing in the world. Of course you're going to enforce the laws. Of course, because now we've had our elected representatives go pass the law. And now we've had the president, which we just elected, go say, hey, you remember that law that you guys are ignoring it? Stop ignoring it. And then this other guy that is elected saying, yes, the law that's been passed that was asked to be enforced by the president, we're now going to enforce it too. Here's the crazy part. There's some states that are putting their foot down and not going to enforce this. And it's just the dumbest idea. It's not ethical. It's not good. And it fits this whole other wider scope of multiculturalism. They say multiculturalism like it's a good thing. Well, look, multiculturalism is a good thing when it's dinner time and you want to pick out where you're going to go eat and you have a lot of choices. You go get Thai food, you go get Indian food, you go get Mexican food, you can go get steaks or burgers or sushi or what. That kind of multiculturalism is good. But the kind of multiculturalism where you're driving a 600,000-pound vehicle at 70 miles an hour and you can't read the signs, that's bad. Not all multiculturalism is good. In fact, multiculturalism is not a good policy economically. It's not good for, minimizing conflict between neighbors and citizens of the country. There's communication barriers. You have the balkanization of neighborhoods. We stop communicating with each other. It does not help us get along. It is not good economic policy. It is not the way you get ahead as a nation. Is by what? Diminishing your own native culture? Yeah, look, we have this whole systems of, we all agreed to use the same language. We put all our signs up and all the rules. And if you're going to look up something on your phone, and then some guys aren't going to comply with that. You really think that's good? You really think that's good for the country? See, the only way you think that's good is if you don't like this country. If you can make it less American, if you hate America, if you think America is a bastion of hatred, bigotry, sexism against women, transphobia, and hating of immigrants, and literally Hitler, the multiculturalism is good because it dilutes a culture you think is bad. But if you love America, multiculturalism, not the way to go. Did you ever notice in the Bible, like how in the Old Testament, Old Testament's like 3/4 of the Bible. And when you get to past a certain point, it's just the same story that repeats. It's like, well, the Jewish people turned away from God, forgot their religion, started accepting other gods and letting foreigners in, and they were intermarrying with foreigners, and it diluted their own culture, and eventually their society collapsed until they had a spiritual rebirth. They turned back to God. They shed the multiculturalism, and they got back to the traditions and the mores that built up their country in the first place. Now, multiculturalism, I'm pretty indifferent on it in a vacuum, but when you're America, when you're the number one country, the hyperpower of the world, most successful, highest standard of living, richest country, most accomplished country, whether it's the space program or the Olympics or the Nobel Prize, why would you want to be accepting other people's mores and traditions that haven't been as successful? Is that what you would tell the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl last night or last year? They're going to be playing against the Cowboys tonight. I'm really excited about that. Does anybody say, hey, guys, you need to stop being so much like the Eagles and start being like the other teams. You need to be more like the Texans and the Browns and the Jaguars, and they start acting like the doormats? Is that really good? If you're number one to adopt the policies and the practices of your failed neighbors? And just for the nail in the coffin on this multiculturalism talk here, how'd that work out for the Iroquois, the Mohawks, the Delaware Indians, when massive amounts of people came here and didn't assimilate, didn't learn their language, continue with their old customs? What happened? They went away. Well, we cannot sustain unfettered immigration to America with no assimilation and be America very long. There's a lot of us, but there's not that many of us. So yeah, I think this is the just most brain dead, common sense policy. And I'm glad Governor Abbott's on board. I'm glad he's doing this. I'm glad they're finally enforcing this law. My question was, why weren't we doing this last year or the entire time you were governor? This is the bare minimum of where you should start. Yes, yeah. All truckers, all commercial truckers should be required to speak English. There's nothing bigoted about that. In fact, for a great example, the aviation world, everyone has to know English. All pilots, commercial pilots who are going to be flying into commercial airports, the air traffic control towers, the pilots, they all have to learn English. Why? If we're all going to be sharing this travel system together, it is imperative for the safety of the people participating in this system and the people around it to be able to talk to each other. That is not a crazy controversial stance, nor should it be. The crazy controversial stance is the fact that up until today, the standard operating procedure in Texas was, hey, this obvious common sense thing that's already a law on the books, we're just going to ignore it. So let's talk about the incentives here. Who doesn't want this enforced, and why wouldn't they want it enforced? Now, I know WBAP is a pretty political animal, pretty political station. We talk about politics all the time, and that's a pretty easy, one of the pretty easy angles to see. Some people like illegal immigration because they think that more voters are in the future, and they're going to vote for them. If we could just get them in here and get them legalized and get them a voter ID card or get them to vote, we're set. Even if we can't get them amnestied, we can get them part of the process, and maybe the little fake ID that they've made, we can sort of co-opt that, or we can at least get them to show up at rallies, or we can at least get them to cause chaos and be asking for some sort of government expansion for a safety, anti-chaos situation. But get off the politics for a second, because all that's true, and that's some people's incentive. But for the big movers and shakers, the ones that use trucking companies, if you're a big company like a Walmart, or if you're a Target, or you're a McDonald's, or you're a Dick's Sporting Goods, you use trucks all day. That's one of your big costs. Wouldn't you like for your trucking costs to go down? How can you do that? Well, you can import a bunch of people, and some of them are legal. Some of them are here under, just the most, what's called rubber stamp of immigration processes. You get an employer-sponsored visa. And it's like, oh, yeah, we have a shortage of truckers around here. We couldn't find anybody else, so we got to import them. Yeah, no. You don't want to pay the American wages anymore. You want to pay the wage of what a third worlder will accept, which is basically you could pay them in sand and they would still take the job. So for all the people out there who are concerned about rich people getting away with it and they're just exploiting poor people. And yes, this is how they do it. This is rich people exploiting poor people. This is rich people grinding middle-class Americans underfoot back into poverty because they've taken away their livelihood, their line of work. It used to pay well. It used to pay better than it does now to be a trucker. There were a lot of jobs, more than there are now, and they paid better. And where I grew up out in East Texas, being a trucker is not something that's looked down on. Being a trucker, like, okay, well, your family's going to be all right. You don't get to see your dad very much, but at least you're going to be middle class. These truckers that have been priced out of the market, have you seen these stories? Flip around on X. Flip around on your social media. Tell me if you can find any truckers that are telling the story about how they lost their job. They're like, I just can't do it for that low of money anymore. My costs have gone up, but my pay hasn't. They can't compete with people who are willing to live just a grinding poverty standard of living. And so if we can get some of those guys out, then a livelihood, a way of life will return for Texans. And you'll see thousands of them being lifted out of poverty back into the middle class. And all we have to do is enforce a law that was on the books this entire time. This doesn't seem like a big deal to you because you're not a trucker. But for these people, what a huge injustice they have faced their entire life. We have all set aside and allowed this law to not be enforced without ever fussing about it so they can import immigrants to take our neighbor's job, and we just let it happen. They have been failed. If you're a trucker, what are you supposed to do? You and all your friends get together, you elect representatives to pass the law that would save your job and protect it from illegal, unethical foreign competition, and you got it passed, and then no one enforced it. Your country just left you to fend for yourself. So yeah, all truckers should have to learn English. All truckers should be able to demonstrate proficiency in English. And if you can't, well, that's too bad. You're going to have to start paying Americans more. You're going to have to kick out all these illegals or these people who are just barely have some sort of the thinnest veil of legal status. And I'm thinking about the guy in Austin who earlier, this year, just ran up the back of a whole bunch of cars, killed 5 people. There was another one outside of Terrell, did the same thing. There was another big crash. 17 people went to the hospital just last weekend on I-20 outside of Lindell. We had the guy that was the seat guy that decided he was just going to do a U-turn, and that was in Florida, if I remember correctly. Killed a family of 3. So there's safety concerns, there's economic concerns, there's ethical concerns, and they all point to just enforcing the law. And it's just a common sense, law. And for all the people who talk about, hey, we need to raise wages for the middle class, or we need to raise the minimum wage. Poor people aren't getting paid enough. We need to find a way to make incomes go up. This would make incomes go up. This would be a benefit to the least among us, the lowest rungs of society, lower rungs of society. This is how you actually raise wages without changing the minimum wage or passing a new law, just enforcing the laws you already got on the books. It'll help Americans to the detriment of foreigners, and I'm totally okay with that. It's John Rich from Big and Rich. Country fans know this. If you're not a country fan, you still probably at least know their biggest song, because, I mean, it gets played everywhere. Wedding receptions, stadiums, commercials. You probably heard this, right? So I actually got to see them live one time. I saw Big and Rich. It happened to be in Vegas, Fremont Street. They were doing a show on an outdoor stage. And they did this cool thing where, you know, it's kind of an upbeat, positive sort of band anyway. But I remember John Rich said, hey, just stop what you're doing for a second. We're not going to make any noise, but I want you to look to your left and I want you to look to your right. And I want you to introduce yourself to the people next to you. And there, boom, you got 2 new friends. And so everyone actually did it. Everyone's like, hey, my name is James. Is your name Carol? Okay. Hey, my name's James. What's your name? Mitch? All right, cool. I guess we're friends now. All right. And, you know, you don't get a whole lot of like positive, uplifting stuff like that. That's also kind of young and cool and hip. You know, that might be something you see at a Frank Sinatra tribute band or something. But I thought, you know, what a good guy. What a positive guy. He's not up there trying to be sexy or cool or bad. He's just being a nice guy. So with that, I'll let you hear my interview with John Rich. Joining me now, John Rich. If that sounds familiar, or you're a country fan, you recognize Big and Rich. If you're not a country fan, this is a guy you've seen on Fox News and you've heard his songs. You know, John, you're Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. I can't go to a stadium now without hearing it. You have one of those songs that's just embedded in the culture from here on out. You know, there's just going to be songs you hear. You're going to hear Crazy Train. You're going to hear Centerfield. You're going to hear you, actually. But you're not coming on to talk about music today. You're coming on to talk about something else I'm a fan of, Redneck Riviera whiskey.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's crazy to see Big and Rich music has become part of culture like that. I mean, college game day football is coming to your city for the past, almost 20 years, which is hard to believe. But, yeah, I've got a whiskey, Redneck Riviera American blended whiskey. I put it out in 2018, and it is blowing up in Texas. We're up 100% year over year in Texas. I'm a Texan. I'm from Amarillo originally. That's where I grew up. And, I set out to see if I could come with an American version of Crown Royal, which is what I always drank. That's Canadian blended. I said, well, man, America needs its own blend. We need our stuff. And so I use American glass, American corks, labels, everything in that product is 100% made in our country. And then we give back to the Folds of Honor, which is a organization that puts kids through college who lost a parent in combat or who has a disabled parent serving our country. We've sent them now $2 million off of sales of this whiskey. So it has really grown at a rapid pace.
Well, when you first came out with it, I think you did an interview on, it might have been Fox News, or it might have been one of my other radio friends. But I'm like, hey, I'm a fan. Sounds like a good cause. I'm a big fan of whiskey as it is. So when I saw it in the store, I grabbed it. And two things. Number one, it was cheaper than I thought. I thought, well, it's like a celebrity brand, and right, it's for charity, so they're going to kind of gouge you, but just eat it because it's for a good cause. No, you kept the price point just reasonable along with everyone else. And number two, I actually went back and got some more. Now, I'm not going to say it's like my number one in the rotation, but it's in the rotation, so it's actually great whiskey, reasonable price. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, I kept it priced for where regular blue collar people could afford it, because a lot of the whiskey out there is $50, $60, $80 a bottle, and I grew up in the Panhandle. I have a high school diploma, nothing fancy in my pedigree. I mean, that's my people. So I wanted to come with something really smooth, but that you could actually still afford, and we would give back to our veterans, and we managed to do all those things. Specs, Total Wine, Siegel's, Goody, all those chains are now carrying Redneck Riviera whiskey. So I'm really excited to see it doing so well in my home state.
Where is it distilled?
So we blend it right here in Tennessee, just south of Nashville. We blend it here, bottle it here, ship it from here. So it's all generating out of Tennessee and goes all over the country. We're in 11,000 stores now across the United States and growing rapidly. So Texas is a standout this year. It has really started to catch on. A lot of Crown Royal drinkers are going, you know what, that's a good point. That's Canadian blended. I wonder what American blended tastes like. And when they do a comparison, it's not even close. Mine is so much smoother and better and more affordable. So they move over to Redneck Riviera. So I'm pretty excited, man. It's great to see Texas embracing it.
Well, the Redneck Riviera brand is something that seems to be expanding. You now have the Redneck Riviera bar that's in Nashville on the Strip there. How far are you going to take this brand? What else you got coming up for us, John?
Well, people like it. It's a very patriotic brand. It's red, white, and blue. It's America first. The product is 100% made in America. When you walk in a liquor store, most all the glass you're going to see is made in China, India, Mexico, because it's a lot cheaper. American glass is expensive, but I don't care. I want it to be 100% made in our country. So it is an American whiskey from top to bottom. And so if people keep demanding it, I'm going to keep expanding it. I think we do need places like that. When you see a lot of brands that disappoint you, from Cracker Barrel to Bud Light, there are brands out there like mine who will not disappoint you, they do hold the line. They are authentic, and they do support our country and Americans and our military. That's what Redneck Riviera is all about.
So what other Redneck Riviera brands you got going out there? You've got the bar and grill. You've got the whiskey. I've seen you wearing Redneck Riviera T-shirts, but is there a clothing line, or is that just advertising?
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. So redneckriviera.com is where you want to go. There's apparel. I actually have a boot line that's patriotic boots. I wear mine every day. I'm a bit of boot guy since I was a kid in Amarillo. So yeah, there's boots, T-shirts, there's whiskey, there's live music venues. It's becoming quite a thing, man. Definitely getting a lot bigger than I thought it would, but that's a good thing.
Oh man, those boots look sharp. Love that. It's very Texas themed boots you got there.
Absolutely, 100%. I love wearing them. I rep them all the time. And again, you probably have veterans and active duty listening to us right now, and this brand is for them. I mean, this brand, as a high school graduate that now has a brand like Redneck Riviera nationwide, the only reason that's even possible is because we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as dictated in the Declaration of Independence. And our military are the ones that have kept those inalienable rights alive for us to still enjoy and to still exercise. So I look at any success I have as directly related to the service of those men and women.
Well, are you expanding into any more liquor categories? Because, whiskey just feels very American, more so than a vodka or a tequila or even like a gin. Are you just going to stick with whiskey?
I think I'm just going to stick with whiskey for now, man. I mean, down the road, I don't know. We might do something else, but right now, Redneck Riviera whiskey, like I said, in the state of Texas, we're up over 100% year over year. Specs, Total Wine, Seagulls, Goody. They've all come on board. They've all gotten behind the brand. They love what it stands for. They love that price point. They love that it's American made. And it's just selling like crazy in Texas right now. I have to thank those stores for coming on board. It's tough, man, when you start butting heads with Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and Crown Royal. I mean, those are multi-billion-dollar brands, and Redneck Riviera, it's a solo-owned, independent brand. And when those stores bring us in and people go in and like yourself and buy it, man, that's what puts us in the game.
Did you have the big planogram wars? I know in the retail space they have to fight over who gets put where on the shelf, and a lot of that can be a very contentious fight, the old planogram.
That tells me you know a little bit about it, 100%. Trying to not be on the bottom shelf in the back corner of the store. I mean, that's where the big boys will shove you to. They're like, don't put that Redneck Riviera up there. Put this Jack Daniels up there. And, yeah, they'll just buy their way in. But that being said, people have searched out the brand, and they go, I want to check this out and see if it's any good. And, yeah, I love Folds of Honor. Let's see if it's any count. And then they try it and go, wow, this is surprisingly smooth. This is surprisingly good. Like you said, it's in your rotation. This is not a $100 bottle of whiskey. This is under $25, but it is like a go-to for a lot of people now.
All right. Well, I'm checking out the website, redneckriviera.com, and I am new to all this apparel game. I didn't know this existed until you said it. And guys, you need to come check this out, redneckriviera.com. I'm already a fan of the whiskey. The boots are awesome, but I didn't know you had all these cool shirts.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. We have fun with those logos. It's like I said, it's patriotic. It's funny. There's a lot of humor in what we do. But then there's that serious edge, too, of we love our vets, we love our country, and we mean it. And so my T-shirts are made in the USA. That's also something you don't find very often. So, listen, we put our money where our mouth is, man. We want to give people something they can be proud of.
Well, these shirts and boots are definitely something that the WBAP audience would snatch up. Just fine, John Rich, take all my money here. Especially, I think I'm going to get this Don't Tread on Me shirt. But John Rich, you're doing all this for Folds of Honor. Just give a quick 30-second rundown on why that's so important.
Folds of Honor was founded by a guy who's actually still an active duty Air Force pilot named Dan Rooney. And the money that gets raised and that goes to Folds of Honor goes to college scholarships for kids or spouses who have a family member who was either killed in action or severely disabled in action serving our country. So $2 million now sent from Redneck Riviera brands to the Folds of Honor since 2018. So there's people going to college right now subsidized on sales of this whiskey. And that is something I'm really, really proud of. Specs, Total Wine, Seagulls, Goody. Every time you go in there, you're helping us write more checks to Folds of Honor.
John Rich, good whiskey, even better cause. Thank you very much for your time on The James Show.
Yeah, man. God bless Texas.
All right, so that was John Rich from Big and Rich. Again, redneckriviera.com. And I wasn't just fluffing him a little bit there. I actually have had his whiskey probably 5 or 6 times. I've bought a bottle of that Redneck Riviera whiskey. It's fantastic. It mixes well. It doesn't try to do anything other than be whiskey. You ever get those whiskeys? It's like, well, this one's got a flavor of orange peel and dirt. So, well, can I just have like regular whiskey? So remember, Redneck Riviera, whenever you're in the store going through, I know you're not going to like write it down and make it a priority, but just next time you're casually going through the liquor store aisle, you see that label, you'd be like, oh, yeah. I heard about that on the James Show. That's from John Rich. That's for a good cause. And then you can do a good thing with the whiskey you were probably going to drink anyway, right? All right, now coming up next on the James Show, my next story is going to be a lot like my first story in the fact that it makes you just want to slap your forehead. Like you open hand, slap your forehead, just slap it, and it makes that popping sound. Because this is such a no-duh moment. If you're just joining us, the first story of the day was Governor Abbott announced that he's directed the DPS to actually enforce the law that's been on the books requiring commercial truck drivers to be proficient in English. Now, that's been the law, I think, your entire life, but Donald Trump had to sign an executive order, issued one earlier this year, I think just a couple weeks ago, requiring that law be enforced. And so now you had the governor saying, okay, well, we're going to actually enforce the law. You mean the law's been on the books? Now that the president said you need to enforce it, now you're going to, man, just slap your forehead with your hand. The next one, just as baffling, because it not only is it right, it's so obviously right. It's right without even having to do any proofs. It's self-evident, to quote our founding fathers, that this is right. And the story is going to come out of Chicago this time. And the issue in Chicago is they are stuck between, well, do we take this model that just got used in D.C. where they send in the National Guard and crime gets subdued substantially and murders go away and lives are saved and people are safe and happy? Or do we let more of our citizens suffer and continue to let the streets flow with blood in order to prevent Trump from getting a win? Now, in order to justify that, the Democrat mayor of Chicago has had to blame his city's gun violence on you. Gun people from red states are why the gun control in Chicago is not working. It's why it's so murderous. You'll hear it. You'll hear the audio next from him on the James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.